trust issues. We all have them, but what if the thing holding you back from peace, clarity, and purpose is your own understanding? This message will challenge you to stop leaning on what you know and start trusting the one who knows it all. Welcome to Epic Everywhere, practical teaching to help you grow in your faith, no matter where you are on your spiritual journey. I'm really glad that you made it. I know some of you are here because someone invited you, some of you found us on Google or scrolled upon us on social. Whatever brought you here, welcome. We believe that church should be fun and meaningful and that it should make a difference in your life. And that's exactly what I hope you experience with us today. My name is Emily and I'm the pastor of Epic Online. And as we get started, we're going to go ahead and take time to get and stay connected by checking in. When you check in, not only does it let us know that you were here, but it also gives you access to some next steps that you can take in your faith, and it keeps you in on the loop on what's going down here at Epic. You can check in today by texting the word "here" to the number 215-999-8575 or by scanning the QR code right on the screen. Last week, we announced that we're going to be hosting the Philly Egg Hunt again this year. This is such an incredible opportunity for us to serve our community in a fun and memorable way. And this year, we get to host this amazing event in the Philadelphia area and the King of Prussia area out in the burbs. Hey, as far as we know, this is Philly's largest egg hunt, and it's going to take all of you, all of us, to make it happen. You can see all of the different ways to volunteer for it right up on today's hub. You know, when I moved to Philly, I really wanted to get to know people and I really wanted to make a difference in the world and the city around me, but I just didn't know where to start. And then I volunteered at my first community outreach event with Epic. And honestly, it changed everything. It was really powerful for me to be able to use something as simple as my time and show the people of our city how much they are loved. And man, oh man, did I feel loved in the process. I walked away having the best time, really knowing people and feeling that I was a part of things and feeling so good just knowing I was being used by God in some small way. So, hey, don't miss out on the opportunity to go ahead and volunteer. It really is going to make all the difference. Volunteer signups are now open for you, your coworkers, your gym buddies, and your group. Invite a whole bunch of people to volunteer with you. You'll find a link to that on the hub or on our website, phillyegghunt.com. And then coming up on March 23rd, we get a front row seat to see what God is doing in our church as we celebrate baptisms. For some of you, baptism is your next step. It's a way to say, yes, I'm following Jesus. I'm not perfect. I don't have all of my questions answered, but I'm choosing to follow Jesus. If that's you and you haven't been baptized, then sign up on the hub. Yes, this is your time. Well, each week I always take time to encourage us in our giving. In the Bible, in 1 Corinthians, the Apostle Paul is talking to the church about how to prepare their financial gift for God's people. He says this: on the first day of each week, you should put aside a portion of the money you have earned. This passage really encourages all of us to make sure that our giving to God is priority and it's planned. But in a personal sense, what does that look like for you? Do you have a plan? Is your giving intentional? Is it non-existent? Is it more kind of haphazard? Listen, wherever you might be, I want to challenge you to follow that example that we see in Scripture, taking a step to make sure our giving is priority and planned. For those of you who are doing this, way to go, keep it up. And if you're not there yet, it is okay. We often do better as we know better. So maybe today is the day when you can take a step towards being more intentional, having a plan for how you're going to honor God and support what He's doing through our church. So if you'd like to give today, you can do that through the hub or on our website, epic.church/give. Well, right now, we're going to continue getting better together as we get to today's message.
LeBron James.
Happy birthday to you.
Okay, make a wish and blow them out.
I wish for a new mommy.
Well, hey everybody, my name is Kent, and as glad as I am that you're doing church with us today, I gotta say I'm a little bit sad. And that's because this is the last week in our series, Funny Cause It's True. That each week we've used something fun or funny that we found online to help introduce the topic that we're going to be talking about that week. And I gotta tell you, I've just really enjoyed how we've gotten to laugh and learn together. And so let's go ahead and jump into it. Today's clip is a compilation from a viral internet challenge called the I Trust My Wife Challenge. Check this out.
I trust my wife.
I just aim for the... All right, let's go for it.
You went for
Okay.
No estoy listo. No. ¡Ay!
Trust my wife. Oh, not to say. Baby, don't sweat.
Are you serious? Can you believe that? To the comments. Here we go. So, the first comment said this. Can we just agree that some of those wives did that on purpose? You know they did. 100%. No doubt about that at all. This person, Toddy Meister 28, said, not one aimed at the cup. Not a single one. Listen, Todd was disappointed. Like, he expected more from those people than that. Flawless Kia said this, says, why are all the wives aiming so low? And then I clicked on that and someone replied, this is what they said. They said, are you not married? Because if you were, you would understand. This person had a different perspective altogether. They said this, so the cup still fell off. So, I mean, mission success? And then this person said, they just laughed about this. So they said, the wife who got it okay the first try, but then came back for the face. And I was laughing. I was like, you are not kidding. Like, came back for the face. And this is probably my favorite from someone named Ann. She said this. She says, where was this challenge before I got separated? she would have had something for him, boy. She was ready. Anyways, I know some of you guys are thinking, oh, I know what we're talking about today. We're talking about marriage. We're not. Nope, nuh-uh. Not after that video. You serious? I am not that dumb. I feel like if I did that, then I'd have something waiting for me at home whenever I got home, and I don't want no smoke. Not at all. That video scared me straight. I'm going to stop and get my wife some flowers on the way home. That's what I'm going to do. We're not talking about marriage. And I'm going to get rid of all the belts in the house. We're going to wear sweatpants from now on because I can't take that chance. Anyway, so today I just wanted to encourage you for the next few minutes and talk with you about trust, specifically about trusting God. I mean, like as we saw in the video, like not everyone can be trusted. I mean, not even your boo can be trusted. And so what makes you think that God can be trusted? I mean, that's an important question, and it's a question that we all need to have an answer for. Now, the good news is that God is, in fact, trustworthy. Like, he's worthy of our trust. But the degree to which you do or do not believe that will have significant implications and impact on your life. In fact, I think that nothing will impact your life more than what you think about God and what you think God thinks about you. Nothing. Nothing will impact your relationships more, like whether that be with God or with other people, than what you think about God and what you think God thinks about you. Nothing will impact how you live your life more, like how you spend your time, like what you value and what you don't value. Nothing will impact how you see yourself more than what you think about God and what you think God thinks about you. And nothing will impact what you think your purpose on this earth is or isn't more. And so, man, I hope that all of us leave today with a greater and really a grander perspective on God. Because like I said, so much of our life is affected by what we think about God. And so to get us started, I want to take a look at one of my favorite passages of scripture where God himself actually speaks and tries to give us a more accurate picture of him. It's Isaiah chapter 55. I want you to look what he says. He's starting in verse 8. It says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." So in trying to help us gain a more accurate picture of God, he compares us to something that we do have an accurate picture of, ourselves. And it's in this comparison that things become a little clearer for us. He says, hey, listen, just right out the gate, let's get something straight. My thoughts aren't like your thoughts, and my ways aren't like your ways. And you need to know there's not just a little bit of a difference between my ways and thoughts and your ways and thoughts, but there's a lot of difference between my ways and thoughts and your ways and thoughts. And then he tries to articulate that difference, the disparity between those two things, by using distance as a measure to help show how different those things are. He says the differences between my ways and thoughts and your ways of thoughts couldn't be further apart. That's exactly what he says in verse 9. He says, as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. And so years ago, I read this verse and I thought to myself, like, I wonder, like, how far is that? Like, how high is that? And so I looked it up, and according to Wikipedia, trusted source, the furthest known galaxy is about 13 billion light years away. Billion with a B. And I would have stopped there, but then I realized I didn't know how far light could travel in a year. So I looked that up too. And here's what I found out. Listen, turns out light is fast, like super fast. Light can travel, get this, around the Earth 240 million times in 1 year. 240 million. And so God says here in this verse that the distance between his ways and thoughts and our ways and thoughts is 13 billion of those. Like, do you understand what I'm saying? I'm saying you could travel 240 million times around the earth and then you would go 1. 240 million more times around the earth and then you'd go 2. 240 million more trips around the earth and then you'd go 3. And then you do that 13 billion times. So he's saying here, listen, he said, hey, our best thought on our best day falls at least 13 billion light years short of the worst thought that God has ever had, ever. Like, that's how much bigger, how much grander, how much better, how much more magnificent, how much more excellent, how much more brilliant his thoughts and ways are than our thoughts and ways. And so we have a hard time trusting God. Why? And we would rather just kind of do life our own way and just see what happens because what? Listen, do you see where we're going with this? Like, there is someone who is more qualified and his credentials are off the charts when it comes to being the leader of our lives. And it's important that we start here because the more you understand just how great, just how big, just how magnificent and powerful and excellent and good and amazing God is, the more you'll be compelled to trust him. The more you'll be able to find the confidence that you need in order to trust him over yourself. In fact, we've said it this way, the greater your understanding of who God is, the greater your worship of him will be. For the greater your understanding of who God is, the greater your worship of him will be. Okay, I think that the biggest reason why so many of us struggle to trust God is because we just don't really have a real concept of who it is that we're dealing with and just how grand and amazing he is. Because if we really knew and if we really understood, we just fall on our faces. He's that big. He's that great. In fact, Isaiah 40 verse 28 says this. It says, no one can fathom God's understanding. Meaning that we can't even get our minds around how much more God knows than we know. And this isn't a knock on us. Like, Isaiah isn't saying that we're dumb. What he's saying is that we're not even in the same league with God. Like, it's not an intelligence thing. It's a capacity thing. For example, dogs aren't considered dumb because they can't do calculus, right? It's true. And it's not because there aren't any like smart dogs in the world. There's lots of smart dogs, but dogs don't have the capacity to understand calculus. And so Isaiah isn't saying that we're not smart. What he's saying is that we don't have the capacity to understand all that God knows. Like that's how much bigger and that's how much greater and that's how much more magnificent God is than we are. Not even in the same league. And then over and over again, all through our scripture and all throughout the history of people have tried to understand, to figure out God. And they look at their circumstances or they look at the world around them and they wonder, man, like, why is this happening? It doesn't even make sense. Or why would God let this happen to me? And it can be frustrating because you don't understand. But I think God would lean into those moments, not in like a dismissive kind of a way or a rude kind of a way, but in a loving way. And I think he'd say, hey, let me help you with this. Like, I know you want to understand, but you need to know that I don't need you to understand. Like, I don't need you to be able to figure all of this out. In fact, I hate to break it to you, you can't. There's some things you can't figure out, that you can't understand. And so we were created with the capacity to understand and figure everything out. But there is something that we were created with the capacity to do. You know what that is? To trust. You and I were created with capacity to trust. And trust here in this context, for our purposes today, is acknowledging your need for and then relying on someone else. It's acknowledging your need for and then relying on someone else. And all throughout the scriptures, Old Testament, New Testament, before Jesus, during Jesus, after Jesus, over and over again, God calls people not to understand him, but God calls people to trust him. Which, if you think about it, kind of makes sense. Because in the very beginning, the thing that broke the relationship between God and man was a lack of trust. Like Adam and Eve, they didn't trust that God had their best interest in mind. And so they ate from the tree that he told them not to eat from. And so if a lack of trust is what broke the relationship between God and man, it would make sense that an act of restoring that trust could be the thing that would fix it. And gang, whenever you and I, we place our trust in Jesus to be the forgiver of our sin, we place our trust in Jesus to be the leader of our life, it restores that trust that was robbed from God and man's original relationship. See, isn't that interesting? That trust would be the thing that restores what was broken. And so with all that in mind, I want to take you through what's probably the most famous verses in scripture about trust. This was written by King Solomon, who's the wisest man who ever lived other than Jesus. And so this actually comes from a trusted source. And here's what he says, starting in Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5. He says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. And so right out the gate, Solomon contrasts two things, trusting the Lord and leaning to your own understanding. And the first thing that he says is that our normal tendency, your normal tendency, my normal tendency is going to be to lean to our own understanding. Like it's just the way that we're wired up. That every day, whenever we wake up, with every decision that we face, our first instinct is going to be to lean to our own understanding. And so we'll ask questions like, what do I think about this? Or how do I feel about this? Or what do I think would be best concerning this? Like that's our tendency. What he says is, hey, don't do that. Don't make that your first go-to. Instead, I want you to learn how to trust in the Lord. Instead, I want you to learn how to acknowledge your need for God and then rely on him, because that's trust. And whenever you think about your future, don't lean to your own understanding. Instead, learn how to acknowledge your need for God and then rely on him for your future. As you're dating, don't lean on your own understanding. Instead, acknowledge your need for God and then rely on him for who and how you should date. And whenever you think about like how you spend your time or how you spend your money or whatever resources you have, don't lean on your own understanding about those things. Instead, acknowledge your need for God and then rely on him for how you should spend your time and your money and your resources. And again, I think some of us push back on this because placing our trust in anything other than ourselves Man, that feels risky. And so we say things like, man, I'm just not a very trusting person, right? Like I'm trustworthy, but I'm not a very trusting person. I've been burned before, right? We say those kinds of things. But if you think about it, man, we trust in things all the time. I mean, come on, have you ever taken an Uber? Like that's a lot of trust. Like you're literally one turn away from being abducted, right? That's a kidnapping in the making. You're trusting that that person isn't crazy. You're trusting that they know how to drive and that they drive well. You're trusting that they're actually going to stop at your destination, not just keep on going. There's a lot of trust going on there. Even driving yourself involves a lot of trust. I mean, we're basically sitting on a 20-gallon tank of gas connected to something that makes sparks. Sparks? Are you serious? And don't get me started on airplanes, especially lately. You know what I'm talking about? Right? Like we strap ourselves into a seat in this big metal tube that's connected to rockets that launch us up into the sky at 600 miles an hour, thousands of feet above the ground. The good thing we all have parachutes. Oh, wait, we don't. Right? What do they give us? A flotation device. That's it. That's all we got. But we're like, yeah, it's going to be okay. Right? Yeah, I'm flying to Chicago later this next week. And listen, my whole life, I've always kind of secretly judged the people that clap whenever the plane lands at the end. But you best believe this time when we land, I'm going to be like, good job. Well done. You did it. You did it. You got us here safely. Seriously, it's crazy, right? Because we can't take that for granted. These things, they take an insane amount of trust. So don't tell me that you can't trust because you can. You do it all the time. We do it all the time. God made us that way. God created us with the capacity to trust. And he wants us to learn how to trust in greater ways and for greater things than just a safe flight and a good landing. He goes on here, Solomon says in verse 6, he says, in all your ways, submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. He says, so in all your ways, like in your relationship ways, in your money ways, in your business ways, in your friendship ways, in your career ways, in your marriage ways, in your parenting ways, in your single ways, in all of your ways, he says, submit to him. Like don't lean to your own understanding about what you should or what you shouldn't do, but stop. Acknowledge your need for God and then rely on him to inform what you should or what you shouldn't do. Like wake up every day knowing that you in and of yourself, you're limited. But God's not. That your thoughts are limited, but his aren't. That your ways are limited, but his aren't. And so you trust in him. And then here's the promise. If you do that, if you trust in his ways and his thoughts, it says that he will make your paths straight. You know, I think every time I've taught from this passage over the years, I've always asked the same question because I think it cuts to the core of maybe what we all long for. And that's this. Aren't you tired of walking down crooked paths? And whether that be relationally or professionally or physically or emotionally, God says here, hey, trust in me and I'll make your path straight. Trust in me and I'll take you to places you never would have been able to get if you were just leaning on your own understanding and trusting yourself. Look to me and I'll make your paths straight. And we see this in the life of Jesus. Like he walked up to people all the time and he said, hey, follow me, trust me. Like, don't get caught up in trying to understand me or in trying to figure me out or crack the code. No. He called people to trust him. He says, follow me, trust me, and I'll make your crooked paths straight. Trust me, and I'll lead you to good places. And over time, you'll discover for yourself that the reason why God asks us to trust him is because he is, in fact, trustworthy. And he's worthy of our trust. This is just an opportunity for him to make good on his promises and show just how faithful he really is. Put that on display. Now, the best example of this that I could think of is this app right here. Anybody else use Waze all the time? You know what I'm talking about? So it's a navigational app and it knows where you are, but then you put in where you want to go and it calculates the best route from here to there. What's cool about it though is that it factors in and gathers information in real time. And so it takes into consideration things like road work and traffic and accidents that may have taken place between those 2 points. It calculates what the best route possible is. Like Waze's whole purpose is to calculate the best and most efficient way to get from where you are to where you want to be. When I first started using this app, like I knew that, but I didn't exactly trust it. You know what I'm talking about? And so it would give me a suggested route from where I was to where I wanted to go. And I'd look at it and I'd be like, why is it taking me down all those back roads? Like, what's that about? Like 76 is usually pretty good this time of day. I should probably just go ahead and do that. And so sure enough, that's what I would do. I would go my own way. And sure enough, there would always be like an accident or road construction or really heavy traffic that was kind of unexpected or something like that. And I would sit in traffic like on 76 in like a parking lot, regretting my decision to go my own way. And so after having this kind of an experience more times than I care to admit, I've learned some things that I feel like you need to know about Waze that I think can help us learn how to trust God better. All right, you ready? Here they are. Number one, Waze knows what I can't know, and it sees what I can't see. In other words, Waze's thoughts and ways are much better than my thoughts and ways, because Waze has an ability to do what I can't do. And it's nothing against me. It's just that Waze has a greater capacity and greater abilities than I do. And so because of that, I can trust it. Waze knows what I can't know. It sees what I can't see. Number two, Waze knows how to protect me, and Waze knows how to redirect me. Hey, what do you mean Waze protects you? Well, protects me from getting pulled over by police officers. That's one thing. And don't judge me. You know, you use that feature too, right? It's like, hey, a police officer ahead. You just, you get real serious, real fast. Make sure everything's good. So it protects me from that. It also protects me from potholes, right? Isn't that cool? Pothole ahead. Every time I hear that, I think to myself, thank you, Mr. Waze. Like out here, like trying to save my tires. I appreciate that. Like that's a good friend when someone does that kind of a thing for you. Thank you very much. So it knows how to protect me, but then it also knows how to redirect me. See, I found that Waze is very, very, very forgiving. Anybody else discover that? And whenever I choose to ignore its instructions, it doesn't yell at me. It doesn't condemn me. It doesn't get frustrated with me. You know what it does? It is bloop, 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 recalculating, and then it redirects me. It gives me a whole new plan for how I can get back on course. And if I ignore that, then it bloop, 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 recalculates again and gives me another plan for how I can get back on course. In fact, I think my favorite thing about Waze is that no matter what I do, it won't give up on me. Like no matter how many times I miss my turn, no matter how long I drive in the wrong direction, no matter how lost I get, Waze will always guide me home. It might take me a whole lot longer to get there, but eventually I will get there. So Waze has been so good to me, I think it's dumb to go anywhere without it on. Like even if I know exactly where I'm going and exactly how to get there, I put that thing on. And I've noticed that the more I've done that, the easier it is for me to trust it, because it's proven to be trustworthy over time. In fact, now when it suggests some crazy route, I get a little excited. I'm like, ooh, what kind of adventure are we about to go on? Like Waze knows something I don't know. So here we go. Instead of this like dreaded journey that I'm about to embark on. Look, I trust Waze so much that if you get in the car with me and I put in our destination and you look at it and say, man, I don't think that's right. I'll look back at you and just be like, get out. Like, go your own way, because I'm going this way, because I trust Waze in my life, right? You don't question Waze. And you surely don't question Waze in front of Waze. I don't know how the technology works, but I don't want it to get mad and shut off, all right? So I'm just saying. Now listen, I know I'm being silly, but you need to know that your Heavenly Father knows what you don't know. And He sees what you can't see. And He knows how to protect you. And He knows how to redirect you. And no matter how lost you get along the way, He will never give up on you. Never. Now, I became a follower of Jesus when I was 12 years old. And along the way, I've gotten some of this right and I've gotten some of this wrong. And when I've gotten it right, I've thanked God for keeping me from getting stuck in some of the traffic others people have gotten stuck in. And whenever I've gotten it wrong, because I've missed turns along the way, I've sat there and regretted those decisions of not trusting God in my life. I've turned a lot of short trips into some really long trips. But after every turn that I've missed, God has always recalculated. And after every instruction that I've ignored, God has never given up on me. And every time my choices have led to yet another dead end, and it seemed like there was no way out, God has always made a way for me and made it so I could follow him out of it. And over and over and over again, in the good and in the bad, I've learned that the declaration of Psalm 18:30 is true, that as for God, his way is perfect. The Lord's word, his direction, his instruction is flawless because he knows what I don't know and he sees what I can't see and he knows how to protect me and he knows how to redirect me. And so even if I don't quite understand the route or understand why God has me on the road that I'm on, I can trust that he has a plan. See, we weren't created to completely understand God. We were created to completely trust him. We weren't created to completely understand God. We were created to completely trust him. And so real practically, listen, sometimes you're going to be tempted to want to just write somebody off. But if you'll listen, you'll sense God's Spirit leading you to forgive. And if you'll trust him in that moment, then he'll make your path straight. Sometimes you're going to be tempted to just stay comfortable. But if you listen for God's Spirit, you'll listen and you'll hear him call you to take a leap of faith. It's time to go. And if you'll trust him, he'll make your path straight. And sometimes you're going to be tempted to just spend it all or save it all so you can spend it later. But if you'll listen, you'll hear God's Spirit say, no, I've called you to be generous. And if you'll trust him, he'll make your paths straight. Sometimes you'll be tempted to get too busy, to run around doing this and doing that. But if you listen for God's Spirit, you'll hear God's Spirit say, you need to slow down. And if you'll trust him, then he'll make your paths straight. And sometimes you'll be tempted to believe lies about yourself. But if you'll listen for God's leading, you'll know that you were fearfully and wonderfully made. And if you'll trust him, then he'll make your paths straight. And so my question for you, if you're a follower of Jesus, is this: like, where is God asking you to trust him right now? Like, where is he asking you to trust him right now? Because it's one thing to trust God with your eternity, but it's another thing to trust him with today. And so will you trust him when the relationship falls apart? And will you trust him when the promotion doesn't come? Will you trust him when the diagnosis knocks the wind out of your sail? Will you trust him when the path that he leads you down feels like it's the long way around? You know what I found? I found that God's greatest work in my life always happens on those back roads. Always happens on those unexpected paths. When I didn't understand, when the plan fell apart, when the answers didn't come. That's when I learned that God's way is perfect, even if it's painful. And so let me ask you again, where is God asking you to trust him right now? Maybe it's relational. Maybe there's someone that you need to forgive. Or maybe you just need to trust that God's going to bring the right person into your life when it's the right time. Maybe it's financial, right? And you sense God nudging you to give, but you've been holding back because you're like, I feel like I don't have enough. Or maybe it's about your future. Like you're facing some big decision right now, and fear is keeping you from taking a step of faith that God has already made it clear that he wants you to take. Or maybe it's personal, and you've been believing lies about yourself, that you're not enough, or you're broken, or you're too far gone, or God could never use you. But God's saying, hey, you need to trust what I say about you instead. Whatever it is that God is asking you to trust him with right now, will you trust him? Because if you will, his promise to you is that he'll make your path straight. Or maybe you're here today, and if you're honest, you've never really trusted God with your life. And maybe you believe that there's a God, and maybe even have a little respect for what you would consider God, but you've never actually handed over the keys of your life and said, I'm trusting you to save me from my sin and to be the leader of my life. And I get it, because trust is hard, especially if life has taught you that people can't be trusted. But here's what you need to know. God doesn't ask us to just trust him blindly. He actually made the first move. Like he saw you before you were born. He walked with you through every high and the heartbreak of every low. He gave his son, Jesus, to bridge the gap between us and him. And whenever Jesus went to the cross, he proved once and for all that you can trust God because he gave his life for you. And so if you've been holding back and you've been waiting for the moment where you could just understand everything, can I just lovingly say to you, you're going to be waiting a long time because you'll never understand everything. Listen, understanding isn't the goal. Trusting is. And today, you can make that choice. That you can say, God, man, I don't have all the answers, but I can trust that you do. I want to trust you with my past. I want to trust you with my present. God, I want to trust you with my future. I want you to lead my life. And if that's you, listen, don't ignore that nudge. That's not just me talking. No, that's God inviting you to trust the only one who will never let you down. And when you do, you'll discover for yourself that Psalm 18:30 is true. That as for God, his way is perfect. The Lord's word is flawless. He knows what you can't know. He sees what you can't see. He's leading where you can't lead yourself. And so stop trying to understand everything and stop leaning on your own understanding and start trusting the only one whose way is perfect. Yeah? Yeah. Let me pray for you. God, I thank you so much for every person who is watching today, listening today. God, I pray you give us the wisdom to know what to do with what we just heard and the courage to do it. God, we know that we don't have all the answers, but we trust that you do. And so we want to trust you with our life. We want to trust you with our future. God, we want to trust you with our fears. We trust you with our dreams. God, I pray that you would lead us down a straight path as we follow you. If you're listening and you've never stepped across the line of faith to trust God with your life, ask him to be the forgiver of your sin and leader of your life, then just join me in praying this prayer. So Jesus, I ask you to forgive my sin. Ask you to be the leader of my life. I place my trust in you. Adopt me into your family as a son or daughter. I'm so grateful. Help me to live my life for you. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, everybody, I hope you're challenged and encouraged. If you made a decision to follow Jesus, on the hub, there's a button that says follow Jesus. Click that button so we can follow up with you and celebrate the most important decision you've ever made. So glad you guys are with us today. Hope you have a great one. We'll see you next week.
Such a great message, Kent. Such a powerful thought. God's not waiting for us to get it perfect. Thank goodness for that, right? He's just waiting for us to take the next step. So, hey, whether your next step is making a decision to fully follow Jesus or get baptized on March 23rd or take a step to be investing in all God's doing through his church or just to be back again next week, step out boldly in his direction and I promise you, he'll meet you there. Well, before you leave, would you take time to like, comment, and subscribe, and definitely share this video so we can continue to reach more and more people? Small things that we can be doing each week to encourage and impact more and more people. It's been great hanging out with you today, and I can't wait to see all of you right back here next week.